You're never chosen by any woman because you simply communicate and behave like the easiest, cheapest option on the market. That second-rate meat you feed to the dogs. Bro, understand this once and for all. A woman will want a guy who doesn't care about her and who lives his life like a king, taking care of his kingdom. If you want to be her choice, you'll be left on the reading list. I'll explain it to you in the best way possible in the next few minutes. Get in the flow with me. You weren't ignored by accident. She didn't forget to respond out of distraction. That unanswered view wasn't an oversight. It was a decision. You were pre-sorted and placed where thousands of men end up every day, in the too available category. Not as a prize, but as a plan B. And that's where your problem begins. My name is Matimas, and today I'm not here to stroke your ego or reinforce the lies you tell yourself every time a woman ignores you. I'm the teacher of the lesson no one ever taught you, how you became disposable to the woman you most desired. And worse, how you helped build the very emotional cage that now imprisons you. The truth is harsh, but necessary. You were the man who showed too much, too soon, for someone who hadn't even decided if you were worth a second glance. You offered everything before you were even considered a priority. And in your eagerness to be validated, you forgot to be desired. Most men today live under the illusion that emotional dedication will be interpreted as value. That the more attention they offer, the more they will be rewarded. But in the real world of attraction, this is seen as neediness, desperation, emotional submission. You don't look like a prize. You look like a volunteer. And voluntary, my friend, is the opposite of irresistible. There is a silent principle that governs the psychology of desire, and which most ignore. We don't value what we take for granted. It's instinctive. Absolute security kills tension. And without tension, there is no fascination. You've become the emotional equivalent of a flyer slipped under a door. Present, repetitive, ignored, always offering more, even without being asked. But do you know what makes this even crueler? It's that you believed you were doing the right thing. You believed you were being mature, romantic, different. You believed emotional honesty was enough. That being a good man was enough to be loved by a good woman. And by blindly believing this, you became the exact kind of man they put on hold. You've become the famous "when I'm ready, maybe I'll think about him." The "he treats me so well, but I don't know if I feel chemistry." The "I think he's amazing, but now's not the time." You've become the easy affection, the accessible caress, the emotional medicine she keeps in the drawer and uses only in emergencies. And she treats you this way not because she's mean, but because you offered yourself as the man who would accept anything. You made it clear with your words, actions, and silences that you were willing to be there, even without being chosen. You behaved like someone who would rather be a plan B than not be in the game. Nietzsche wrote that, "What is good is everything that increases the feeling of power. What is bad is everything that arises from weakness." And when you accept being an option, you communicate weakness. You don't arouse desire, you arouse pity. And here's the first principle you need to understand if you want to change your reality. No one is desired for being too accessible. Desire is driven by scarcity, not availability. By challenge, not immediate surrender. By uncertainty, not guarantees. The man who gives everything to be loved without expecting reciprocity is not admired, he is used. Most of the men I see make the same mistake. They think showing more interest will make her reciprocate. But you'll never make someone want you just by showing how much you want them. Interest doesn't work like pressure. It works like a filter. You need to start seeing yourself as something valuable, something that should only be given to those who strive to deserve it. You need to stop chasing after those who only come to you when they're bored. You're not less of a man because you were rejected, but you're less strategic if you continue to accept crumbs as if they were affection. And that's precisely why this video exists. Not to teach you how to play dirty, but to teach you that, in this game, the man who plays it right is the one who knows how to leave the table when he realizes he's just a spare card. From now on, you'll understand why being an option is the worst position a man can put himself in. And more importantly, you'll learn how to turn this game around, not with manipulation, but with presence, courage, and poise. Now I'm going to introduce you to a concept that you'll sleep with: Plan B doesn't have sex. Understand this rule breaker. You've been programmed to believe that the more present you are, the more you'll be valued. That being available, willing, understanding, and always accessible is the way to a woman's heart. But in the real world, where attraction and power go hand in hand, this is precisely the perfect formula for being ignored. And when you are ignored, it's because she's already classified you, not as a priority, but as a backup. She may even enjoy talking to you. She may laugh at your jokes. She may say you're special. But that doesn't change the fact that if another man asks her out on the same day as you, and that man is scarcer, more authentic, more challenging, she'll say yes to him and leave you high and dry. And the worst part? You'll be grateful when she shows up again with that hidden high. Because even though it's Plan B, you still believe you're playing the game. You're not. You're the emotional spectator. You're inside the stadium, but you never get on the field. And the cruelest part, you're the one who bought the ticket. Recent studies in evolutionary psychology show that more than 50% of women in serious relationships admit to having a backup plan. A man they would keep in touch with or eventually consider if their current relationship fails. This man is usually an acquaintance, a friend, an ex, or someone who is emotionally available, but who poses no threat to the woman's current status. In other words, a convenient backup. And here's the irony you need to digest. This backup is often kinder, more available, more dedicated than the current partner. But he's not the one. Why? Because something crucial is missing: emotional tension. Tension is the difference between what you want and what you're not sure you can have. It's the magnetic force generated by doubt, by strategic absence, by the uncertainty that the other person will give in. And you are the certainty, the confirmation, the guaranteed. You are the whatever, I'll call you. You are the I know he'll answer. You are the safety net. And safety nets aren't objects of desire. They're objects of use. Now stop for a second and reflect. How many times have you heard something like, "You're everything I want, but right now I can't commit"? How many times have you felt that, despite everything you've done, everything you've demonstrated, everything you've delivered, the other person simply didn't choose you? It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to change that. Let's use a simple but devastating metaphor. Imagine you're a job candidate. You send in your resume, go to the interview, and the next day you get a call. The company says they loved you, that you were the best candidate they've ever come across, that the position is yours, that you can start tomorrow or next week or a year from now. They're in no rush. They're there to see you whenever you want. That same day, another company calls. The offer is more challenging, more selective. And they say they're still reviewing candidates, that the competition is high, and they'll get in touch if they think you're a good fit. Which of the two will you prioritize? The answer is obvious. You'll wait for the second, because that's where you feel you need to prove something. That's where the challenge lies. And it's the one that, even though it offers fewer guarantees, seems more valuable. This is what happens when you position yourself as Plan B. You become the beta corp of seduction, that company that begs to be chosen, that has already decorated the office before you even accept the job, that has already made you a priority even without receiving a yes. And do you know what the worst effect of this is? It's not just that you aren't chosen, it's that the woman loses respect for you. She loses curiosity. And with that, she loses desire. Cleopatra, one of the most seductive women in history, was never an option. She was the prize. Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, two of the most powerful men in Rome, surrendered to her not because she was nice, but because she was strategic. She knew the power of scarcity, of mystery, of selective presence. And here lies the contradiction that shatters the ego of many a modern man. The more you give of yourself without being asked, the less valuable you are perceived. It's not fair, but it's true. Most men today are driven by fear. Fear of missing out, fear of appearing disinterested, fear of being forgotten. And it's this fear that turns them into emotional slaves. Men who accept crumbs, who are content with late-night messages, who find it affectionate to be remembered only when they're needy. You're not being loved, you're being used as an emotional painkiller. And the curious thing is that most women don't even do this out of malice. They just take advantage of the convenience. Because if it's there, if it's easy, why not keep it in the drawer? It's useful. It's safe. But you weren't made to be useful. You were made to be desired. And to do that, you need to learn to create tension, to say no, to withdraw, to make it clear that you are only available to those who demonstrate, through actions, not words, that they value you. Desire is born from contrast, from risk, from the possibility of loss. If she knows she can have you at any moment, she will never feel the need to fight for you. And here the transformation begins. You need to stop asking yourself, how do I make her choose me? And start asking yourself, why do I keep choosing someone who treats me like a backup? You don't need approval, you need poise. Because the man she respects isn't the one who always says yes. He's the one who knows when to withdraw. The one who shows interest with class, but also knows how to protect his energy. The one who knows that value can't be explained, it's perceived. And value, my brother, is perceived when you're scarce, when you're selective, when you have options but act as if none are urgent. The woman who leaves you hanging today is the same one who chases after the guy who hasn't responded in 3 days. This isn't a coincidence, it's a structure, it's emotional biology. She doesn't just want to be desired. She wants to feel like she needs to win the man she desires. And that man isn't the one who gives in quickly. He's the one who gives in with purpose. And purpose means you won't submit to any situation just to keep someone around. You don't need to be anyone's backup plan. Because a man who understands his own worth doesn't allow himself to be a backup, not even for the woman he desires most. If she didn't choose you, great. That's the filter. It's not the end. Because when you start behaving like a real choice, not a disposable option, the game changes. Perception changes. Respect changes. But this requires a mental reset. It requires letting go of the character who begs, who pleads, who accepts less. And now we present to you your second fatal mistake that destroys your aura: being too interested. You've been taught to believe that the more attention you give, the more attention you receive. That showing interest is an effective way to elicit reciprocity. That proving your worth through grandiose actions is the shortest path to a woman's heart. But this logic, while seemingly noble, is a brutal error. A fatal error. Because it doesn't activate desire. It activates predictability. And predictability, when unsolicited, breeds contempt. What you need to understand is that desire and attraction operate on a completely different code than moral logic. They don't obey principles of justice, kindness, or generosity. Desire is fueled by asymmetries, by tension, by insecurity. It's born in doubt and dies in certainty. You think you're demonstrating value by demonstrating everything you feel. But what you're really communicating is that she already possesses you, that the fight is over before it even begins. And when there's nothing left to conquer, there's no more sexual energy. Desire needs the risk of loss to exist. And you removed that risk the moment you gave yourself completely, without being asked. It's at this point that the attraction game becomes an exact mirror of the negotiation game. Relationships, like contracts, go through 3 phases: attraction, negotiation, and maintenance. And it's in the negotiation phase that most men fail. Because they negotiate like beggars, not like valuable assets. They offer too much. They concede too quickly. They give everything away. And because of that, they lose their advantage. Imagine a selection process. 2 candidates are being evaluated. The first sends an email the next day saying he'd accept any conditions, any salary, any schedule, that he can start tomorrow, that he already feels part of the team. The second politely thanks you and says he's still evaluating other offers. He's honored by the interest, but doesn't intend to make a hasty decision. Which of the 2 generates more value for the company? Which of the 2 communicates scarcity, prestige, or poise? Now replace company with woman. The equation is the same. When you appear too ready, you nullify the natural evaluation process. You don't allow her to desire you. You deliver desire, packaged and with a bow, and she looks at it and thinks, if it's here just like that, it's because no one else wants it. Worse, you communicate desperation. And desperation is the greatest emotional repellent in the game of attraction. The French philosopher and economist Frédéric Bastiat said, "What you see is the price. What you don't see is the cost." And the cost of surrendering too soon is invisible but devastating. It's the cost of your dignity, your perceived value, your bargaining power. Because here's another uncomfortable truth. People don't treat you for your true worth. They treat you for your perceived worth. And the appearance of worth is built on scarcity, not on unrestricted emotional surrender. When you show that you need her presence, that your happiness depends on her attention, that your self-esteem is tied to your WhatsApp response, you're giving away your power. You're saying, I'm more affected by your absence than you are by mine. And the scales tip. She begins to see you as a human pedestal, someone who put her on top without her having to climb. And this eliminates any sense of challenge. You think being vulnerable will generate connection. But without prior tension, vulnerability is just a camouflaged lack of sincerity. And herein lies the most common mistake of well-intentioned men, confusing intensity with strategy. Showing feelings too early doesn't prove courage, it proves recklessness. It proves you're betting everything without knowing if the other side has cards on the table. It's like playing poker and turning your hand in front of everyone. You show you have a good heart, but also reveal that you have no emotional control. And the problem with those who play emotionally is that they don't know how to stop. They keep betting even when they're losing. They keep trying to compensate with more attention for what her absence has already made clear. She doesn't want to be there. But you persist, because you believe that more effort will bring more results. And this is the second fatal error. In the world of attraction, wanting too much doesn't attract. It pushes away. The more you show you want, the less value you represent. It's counterintuitive, but profoundly true. A man who wants too much is seen as someone with few options, and men with few options don't arouse desire, they arouse pity or guilt. A woman who perceives you as too emotionally available to her, even without return, feels like she doesn't need to invest, that she doesn't need to make an effort, that you're already hers and therefore not valuable. A valuable man is one who communicates subtly and consistently that his energy isn't given, it's earned. That his presence is a privilege, not a need. That his time is a filter, not an offering. And when this man shows interest, that interest is worth more. Because it's rare. Because it's not mass-produced. Because it's not for sale. This doesn't mean being cold, cynical, or playing petty games. It means having a clear sense of value. A man of value doesn't beg. He observes, he tests, he withdraws. He senses reciprocity before giving himself over, and most importantly, he never shows more than he receives. This is the unspoken rule of high-level attraction. Interest needs to be mirrored. If she takes a long time to respond, you slow down. If she avoids commitment, you withdraw. If she doesn't show enthusiasm, you don't give. This isn't immaturity, this is emotional intelligence. This is negotiation with self-esteem. And this is precisely what men confuse. They think that by backing off, they're being childish, when in reality, they're just leveling the scales. You need to learn to respond to what she shows, not what you want, because your desire is yours. But value is constructed in the realm of her perception. And perception is sensitive to excess. This is why men who fall in love too quickly, who give themselves too easily, who offer everything in exchange for attention, are always stuck in the cycle of rejection. Because they project their need onto the wrong person, and when they're rejected, they believe the problem is love. It's not love, it's a lack of strategy. You can be intense, yes, but you need to be selective. You need to be observant. You need to understand that the game of attraction is more like chess than soccer. It's not about chasing the ball. It's about positioning, patience, and reading the scene. And if she perceives you as desperate, you've already lost. You need to develop what I call strategic neutrality. It's the state where you show interest without needing the other person, where you approach without kneeling, where you show yourself open without seeming available at any cost. This posture is magnetic because it conveys security. It shows that you're interested, but not necessary, that you appreciate, but not dependent. And this balance is rare. That's why it's desired. Most men kneel emotionally in front of the woman who barely said hi, and then don't understand why she disappears. She disappears because you showed up too much. Because you gave yourself completely before even being invited in. That's what needs to change. And now we come to the most important part of the video. If you got here, congratulations. Almost no one does. You are a winner. Take advantage and comment below your main knowledge of the video and send it to that friend of yours who needs help understanding the game. Let's get to the point. How to be the choice, not the shadow. Understand it this way. Being chosen isn't about luck, looks, or cliches. It's about positioning. And positioning isn't born from trying to please. It's born from a precise understanding of how female desire works. The man who is chosen is the man who masters this silent structure and behaves in a way that activates the right triggers. Not through manipulation, but through self-control. He understands that in the game of attraction, perceived value matters more than real value, and that no one chooses what they don't respect. To be a woman's choice, you need to behave like someone who doesn't depend on her. This begins with an internal reconfiguration. You need to stop living for the possibility of being loved and start acting like someone who demands to be conquered. A man who doesn't chase, but who attracts. Who doesn't beg for presents, but who makes himself felt by his absence. Most men are trying to be accepted, trying to fit into the emotional world of a woman who barely knows what she wants. They shape their actions according to what they think will please. And in this attempt to fit in, they lose themselves. Because if you mold yourself too much to other people's desires, you lose your shape. And those who lose their shape lose their value. A woman doesn't want someone who adapts to her. She wants someone who has his own direction. A woman wants a man who lives an interesting life with or without her. A man who, if she wants to enter, will have to keep up. This man isn't waiting. He's living. And because he's living, he becomes magnetic. The shadow is the opposite of this. He's the guy who's there, orbiting, always close, always accessible, but never central. He's not a threat to other men. He's not a reference for her friends. He's the one she likes, but never chooses. And this is cruel, because he's the one who does the most. He's the one who gives the most, the one who dedicates the most. But all of this doesn't make him desirable. It makes him predictable. Emotional predictability is the grave of desire. A woman knows exactly what you're going to do. She knows that if she disappears, you'll wait. If she shows up, you'll smile. If she asks, you'll give in. And this, instead of creating connection, creates silent contempt. The man who is chosen acts differently. He sets boundaries from the start. It's not about playing games, but about knowing what he will tolerate. He observes, he tests, he gives small signals and observes reciprocity. And most importantly, he knows how to leave. He has the courage to abandon the game when he realizes he's being disrespected. That's power. That's charm. That's real scarcity. It's not about appearing disinterested. It's about demonstrating that you have other options, other projects, other sources of pleasure. That your life doesn't revolve around a woman's validation. This triggers a sense of potential loss in her. And potential loss is the engine of desire. Do you want to be the choice? Then stop trying to be loved. Start being felt. Your absence needs to weigh. Your silence needs to disturb. Your withdrawal needs to make an impact. And that only happens when your presence is strong. When you're not just another person. You build this with poise, with genuine commitment, with ambition, with care for your appearance, with clarity in your speech, with firmness in saying, I don't accept this. Every choice you make communicates something. You're either saying I'm scarce and valuable, or you're saying I'm available and desperate. There's no middle ground in this game. The man who is the choice doesn't show everything. He doesn't expose his feelings prematurely. He gives signals, but saves his depth for those who prove they deserve it. And not because he's cold, but because he understands that value isn't in giving yourself easily. Value is in being conquered little by little. There's a huge difference between being accessible and being conquerable. Accessible is someone who's there at any time. Conquerable is someone who demands action, who demands genuine interest, who doesn't bow down at the first compliment. This man stands out because he's rare, because he acts calmly, because he observes silently, because he doesn't need to impress anyone. And that's precisely why he impresses. A woman who is accustomed to sycophants, to men who humiliate themselves for attention, to emotionally needy men disguised as romantics, when she meets this man, she freezes. She recalibrates. She thinks twice before ignoring him. Because she feels there's no comfort zone there. There are consequences there. She feels that if she doesn't take a stand, she'll lose. And losing someone who conveys real value is a pain she doesn't want to feel. This is very different from what most men experience. Most are disposable, they're useful, they're pleasant, but they're not memorable. And you only become memorable when you understand that emotional conquest doesn't happen through effort, but through scarcity, through congruence, through consistency. There's no point in being confident one day and desperate the next. There's no point in being cold in text and needy on the phone. Either you communicate value in everything, or you'll just be another shadow. Therefore, it all starts with how you position yourself. Do you want to be chosen? Then become someone who chooses. Don't accept any crumbs. Don't negotiate with someone who treats you like an option. Don't invest where there's no return. This is the ultimate paradox. Only those who aren't afraid of not being chosen are chosen. The man who has options is more desired. The man who conveys that he can live without that woman is the one who makes her want to be by his side. This is human nature. This is the psychology of attraction. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be the most handsome, but you do have to be rare. You have to be the one who has the courage to be absent when he's not respected, and the charm to be missed. When you learn to balance presence with absence, interest with selectivity, intensity with strategy, you step out of the shadows. You enter the realm of who she thinks about at night, who she talks about with her friends, who she misses, even without knowing why. You become the kind of man who doesn't need to demand attention. He commands it with presence. And that, my brother, can't be bought. It can't be faked. It's built. From now on, the question is no longer, how do I make her like me? The question is, how do I become the kind of man she fears losing? Because the woman who truly chooses you is the one who knows that if she slips up, you won't be there anymore. If you want access to more premium content aimed only at those who want to change their lives, get our Forbidden Manual audiobook. It's literally a game changer in terms of female psychology and seduction. I highly recommend it. Subscribe, leave your comment, and let's get started. See you soon.